Hello, welcome to the WAGEKILLER channel. Today, I'm going to show you how to use operators in N8n. As a beginner, it's common to get confused about how exactly to use these and what their use cases are. Operators are not just types of data. They're actual logic behind every decision your automation makes. And once you understand operators, you can start engineering workflows that behave exactly as you intended. The main nodes using operators are if, switch, and filter. Think of the if node like a gate, or a bouncer at a nightclub, that only lets you in if you meet a specific condition. In your case, you not bringing girls to the club is true. The switch node acts like a traffic controller, sending data down the correct path based on its value. For instance, you might have a store type that is equal to supplements. That would go on path 1, clothing on path 2, and beauty on path 3, and so on. The filter node removes everything you do not want and leaves only the data that matches your criteria, such as filtering a large list of emails that you only want Gmail addresses from, with the contains operator. I hope you're understanding what I'm talking about now. Let's move on. There are 6 data types, and each one has a different set of operators. We have string, number, date and time, boolean, array, and object. And each one has its own set of operators. The more unique ones are string with regex, date and time with before and after, and array with array lengths. Boolean also has true and false. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using the if node. It's intuitive, simply true or false, and very common. I've gone ahead and created an N8n operator playground that we can use to get sample data for our workflow. If you want to use this, click the link in my description, create a webhook, and copy the test URL, and paste it into the webhook URL field here. Alright, let's get started. Let's hop into our webhook and copy the test URL from this field. Hop into our N8n operator playground and paste it in right here. Now, for a test webhook URL, you're going to need to activate or execute the workflow before you call the test URL. Now we can hop into our N8n operator playground and pick a data type and operator. Let's go ahead and select string and exists. So down here in our JSON payload, we have the string, the field is name, and the value is Chloe. But with this operator, it doesn't matter what the value is. It simply checks if the value exists in the first place. So in this case, that would be true. Let's go ahead and find out. We'll send our test payload, and you can see that we received some data. Now you might be wondering why we have false. That's because we need to set up our if node. Inside the if node we have our input, our configuration, and output. You can see that it took the input, ran it through the configuration, which was empty, and it returned this. The same branch of data we got from here. So let's go ahead and validate this real quick. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll have your example data if you're using my N8n operator playground. But if you're using your own data, find the field that you're trying to validate. You'll have your value here, and let's go ahead and drag it into that first field. Let's change our operator to string exists. And you can see now that this is true. If we exit out of that and run our node again, we should receive a true outcome with the item and all the data. Now this is helpful because now you can branch off into true or false in all of your workflows. The exists operator checks if the field exists in the data, regardless of its value. So anything that we put inside of the value doesn't really matter, it's just whether it exists or not. For the string data type, it's extremely helpful to do something like contains. This checks if the string includes the specified substring anywhere within it. So on this one, we're looking for by, and in the value, we have by Euro USD now. Our webhook is waiting for us to call the test URL. So let's hop into the operator playground, select a data type and an operator. In this case, we'll do string contains, and we'll send the test payload. Looks like we got our data. Let's check it out. Inside the if node, we have the input, the conditions, and the output. This is empty right now. So let's make sure to change our operator to string contains. If you scroll down in the input, you should see your example data here. Let's go ahead and drag the value we're looking for into our value1 field. Now you can swap this to fixed or expression. You could also do something like by is equal to by. That is true. But we are using an expression, so let's go ahead and grab our value field here. So this condition is false for the first input item. That's because we're set to is equal to. Let's go ahead and change that to contains, and we can see that that check mark reveals itself. This condition is true for the first input item. So the value of this object here is by Euro USD now. This contains by, so it's true. You can see here by running the node again, we get a true result with the item in question. All right, let's clear this out and try a different one. Let's go ahead and pick number and is greater than. You can see that is greater than checks if the number inside of your field is strictly greater than the comparison value. This is not greater than or equal to, it's strictly greater. You can see down here that our value is 120, and we're checking if it's greater than 100. In this case, that would be true. Let's go ahead and activate our webhook and send the test payload. We got our data. Let's check it out. Let's scroll down to our example data down here and paste in our value from the input. Let's change number to is greater than, and we'll erase this and put in our comparison or manually type in whatever we're trying to compare it to. So now we have our value, which is 120 in the first field, is greater than as an operator, and in our second field we have what we're comparing it to. And in this case, 120 is greater than 100. Now, if we rerun our node, we should have still a true output with all the data we received from the webhook. Now, I'm sure you can see how some of this is working, so let's go ahead and do something a little bit more complex. Let's hop into our playground real quick and check out date and time, and we'll see is after. Now, is after checks if the date and time is strictly after the comparison value. So there are a couple different ways to format dates, and this date right here is known as what's called timestamps Z. It checks date, time, and time zone at the same time. Our value is 2025-03-15 at 9 o'clock. We're comparing that to 2025-01-01 at midnight. Let's go ahead and activate our webhook, and let's clear out our if node to get some fresh data. Let's go ahead and select the date and time and goes directly to is after. And because the webhook is familiar with the structure that it usually receives, we can go ahead and drag value into this first field. And since comparison is also present in our object, we'll drag that into the second one. Or manually type what you're comparing it to. All right, let's send this and test it out. So we received our data, but we received an error. Let's check it out. So the error we have is that comparison type expects a number, but both fields are a string. Now, N8n does a really good job of giving you simple advice for small fixes. We can try changing the type of comparison, which would be formatting these two objects as a time frame. Or we could just simply turn on convert types where required. Suddenly, if we run this node again, we get a true outcome because March 15th is after January 1st. Now this works because N8n knows that this is not only a string, but it's also a timestamp. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to go ahead and try the array data type. Now, an array is simply a field that contains a set of values. So this is more than one value. So like I said before, in this example, we have many emails that contain gmail.com. If many emails was an array of objects, we could choose an array and see if they all contain gmail.com. Let's hop into our playground and choose array contains. Here we have a JSON payload, and contains checks if the array includes the specified element. So it looks like our object is called roles here, and the value of roles are admin, editor, and viewer. Now we're looking for admin. So let's go ahead and clear out our if node and run the webhook. We'll send the test payload. It looks like we got another error. Let's check it out. So we actually don't have any values here, and I did this on purpose because we have our objects as we did earlier, but we have our array, and you can tell because of these bulleted lines right here. That means an array. If we take the array of value, when we drop it in the value field, you can see that we have an array of admin, editor, and viewer. So let's change our operator to array contains, and we'll type in admin. Now admin is found within the array, so this output is true. If we rerun our node, we should get a true output. All of these data types have exists or does not exist. This just simply checks, like before, if it exists, regardless of its value. An additional thing I wanted to show you was boolean. This is simply true or false. We can check if true is equal to another value that's also true. We can check if true is not equal to false. We can also simply check if something is true or false, or if it even has a value at all. Let's go ahead and select is true. In our N8n operator playground, let's select boolean and is true. Is true checks if the boolean value is exactly true, of course. In the JSON payload, we have an example data of boolean, and the field is paid. Usually, boolean data types are framed as a question. So we're asking, is this paid? And the value here is true. Let's go ahead and run our webhook and send the test payload. Let's check our if node, and we don't have a value in here. Let's just reframe that we're looking for a boolean that is true. And we'll scroll down to our value of is paid, which is true. So, as you would guess, if we drag this in here, this condition is true for the first input item. I hope this video was helpful in teaching you exactly what operators do, where your if node is your bouncer or gate containing true or false items. Your switch node is a router that based upon a value, and your filter node collects a large number of things and outputs just what you want. I hope you enjoyed this video and stay hungry.